Hi, this is Ricardo Diaz welcoming you once again to the CU Immigration Forum TV to bring you news on the immigration issue as it happens nationally, international sometimes, but state and locally. So today there are plenty of items to cover. Immigration just doesn't seem to go away. It's a natural phenomenon, but immigration reform as a political issue comes right along with the immigration cycle. So today I want to cover a couple of sections that are happening at the national and at the state level, but that certainly affect our people in this area. So the first thing I'd like to cover is one related to a national issue. So if we'll go to screen, the issue this time is called the Enlist Act. And it's a bill that was introduced last year, and I'll get to why and I wanted to bring it up today, but let me go over it for in just a second. So Congress.gov is the place to find your bills and to check out what is going on in gestation, really, because many times they put up things here before too many of the legislators are aware. But as a bill comes through, this one is called, as you can see, the Enlist Act, H.R. 2377. It was introduced about a year ago by the representative from California. And if you would be able to read the summary right here, it's a bill that would encourage legalized immigrants to start training. Basically, the undocumented kids, the ones that qualify for the DREAM Act, DACA, those kids that were brought before the age of 15 and do not have legal residency here would be able to enlist. And of course, if they're eligible for enlisting with the regular rules, everything else, into Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, or the Coast Guard. It requires DHS, Department of Homeland Security, which turns out to be USCIS, to adjust the status of an alien enlisted under such authority to the status of an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. So basically, it would provide a way for people to come into a standard residency path because they are enlisted. There are details, and of course they're always up for negotiation. This bill was introduced about a year ago. Why? Well, if you remember, the context is the White House had just introduced what came to be known as DACA. And the whole situation was we can't let the president do something beyond the law, so we will put forward a law that would support the kids, but do it not through the White House, do it through legislation. So the bill was put forward, and this last week, May 31st, Julia Preston, who's the one that covers immigration at the New York Times, puts forward this article. Senator Durbin had put it out also as something to support. The Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, says take an initial action to allow for the enlistment of the young immigrants. And he's been, from the Secretary of Defense perspective, they need everybody they can get, and so this is a way to get new people, especially if they have some sort of skill. There's some play on ground of words there on how this is possible under the law, but it's not the first time it's been done. It was done under President Bush, and so now they want to institutionalize it. So where would you be on this issue? Enlisting the young immigrants to then put them on the road to permanent residency, and then eventually, it's always a big path, long path to residency and then citizenship by having served our country. So, the quota for this kind of thing is very small. There's all kinds of things. So, what is the reaction then from the immigrant advocates? Well, Senator Durbin was all over it and saying, this was such a wonderful thing, as have been pushing it on as to for something to happen on immigration this year. But Cesar Vargas here at the bottom says, one of the kids that, young people that organizes the DREAM Act Coalition, says he was heartened that Mr. Hagel had taken action, but was disappointed by the limited scope of the plan. This policy does not fully tap into the great potential of dreamers who want to serve this country in uniform. I've gotten that from many people. Of course, the peacemakers would say, why do they have to enlist and basically go to war in order to become American citizens? So that's on the positive side. On the Heritage Foundation side, they called it since last year, but recently they put themselves out there as labeling this a backdoor to instant citizenship for those that don't deserve it. And so, of course, you would expect no less from them saying just exclude them, don't let them become, and they cite the law. Of course, the White House and some congressmen would say, we are adjusting the law to make sure that it does include these young people. So that's the thinking. Bringing it back home then, federal level, but back home, what does our Representative Rodney Davis say about this? And so he's been quiet on immigration issues, except for support of the young people, the dreamers. And for this one, if you dig long enough in his, deep enough within his own website, you would find, who he is and all that. But you would also find his statements on immigration. Darn it, and it looks like I might have put them off. So let me see if I can put off. Well, he's got several issues, several times in which he's mentioned immigration, most notably last year at the beginning, hoping that a reform would go through. But if you look at the sponsors, and let me show you here. So this is the Enlist Act, the official website of Congress about the co-sponsors and who wrote the bill and where it is. So on the 14th, it was referred to the committee, which means there is action maybe that will be taken. So it was referred to the House Committee on Armed Services. And if you look at the co-sponsors and when they signed on, June 13 of last year, and then we get some action starting in March this year by some Democrats and Republicans. And then after March, a little bit of April, but notably since articles started coming out, New York Times, we have several people that say yes. And well, we'll give you the date for today. Today's being the 10th. Yesterday, Rodney Davis decided to co-sponsor the bill. It's notable for our area, but also nationwide, that all of a sudden this bill is coming forward. It may also be dragged in committee and everything else, but something is happening on immigration at the federal level. They're not all asleep, and that's important to me. So if I can just come back to, there are many things going on that could be going on in immigration, as I've mentioned before, in our area, making our towns immigrant friendly and having some examples. You'll see that by the end of the summer here in this area, there'll be an initiative. You'll find the CU Immigration Forum at the market at the square in Urbana, putting up more information, more details on that, and asking people to pledge to have our towns become more immigrant friendly. But importantly, the state itself has had a kind of change. I mentioned it a little bit in our previous episodes, but the Trust Act, an initiative that's now gone through several state legislatures, and it came up almost too suddenly officially, but there had been a lot of work behind the scenes to propose it. The Trust Act would make it state policy, state law for something that's been happening here in Champaign County that if you're a long-time watcher of the show, you'll know that that's really where we got kindled into an organization. That people wouldn't be deported if they were following the law, that if they got a ticket and they had to go to court, or for whatever reason they ended up being processed at the local jail, that as they do when they process somebody, we've taken several tours through the jail now, that when they take their biometrics, their fingerprints and on, they get sent up to the FBI. If there is a criminal record, the FBI flags it. What the FBI also does is forward all that information to immigration. So immigration then has a choice as to what to do about it. In present agreements across the country, once immigration decides that they want to take a look at somebody, they send a request to the local jail to say, hold this person. Or if you're going to release them, notify us, and we'll come by and pick up this person. Well, what was happening in our county was that 75% of the people that were being arrested for minor offenses, not having insurance, or running a stop sign and not showing up to court, or whatever it is, things that for what normal people would also go through the system and then get, once they did their bail and everything and they met the requisite local law, they would be released. Well, 75% of those people that were being deported, given to immigration, didn't have anything but a regular person's procedure. So a lot of people were being deported straight through our town, and we'll never forget the film that we made of a local resident, a truly soccer mom. She was going to pick up her kids at the soccer field, and she had a fender bender. She pulled over. They exchanged information, and it turned out to be an undercover policeman who called in reinforcements, and they took her in. It was huge because, of course, her kids are on the field, and she had a babysitter. I mean, the regular things that any person could have. So the point at this point is that in our county, our sheriff has implemented policy that says, if there is a criminal matter related to this person, and the FBI requests him with a criminal charge of some type, then by all means, release this person to them, or to anyone who has a warrant, any judge that has a warrant for criminal cause for these people. But if all they're doing is requesting that I hold somebody, or so the sheriff's office would say, and this person has no charge and we have no reason to hold them, then we don't have any obligation. This is important because in our county for the last 2 years, that has been the policy, and it's an implemented policy. I think any deputy of the sheriff's office that I've met now understands that, and certainly the jail understands that. But that is not so across the country, and not so across our state. So the Trust Act would implement that across our state. Only Cook County and Champaign County, out of the 102 counties, there's 100 counties left in which that was not policy. So that bill was put through. It went through committee. It was supposed to go to the floor. Our state assembly, as you know, dissolves at a certain point, and so they went on vacation. But it is very much before them. And it will continue to be so because there are plenty of counties, law enforcement agencies, and lots of groups across the state that say, let's be reasonable. Across the country, many have withdrawn from this program. The feds say you can't withdraw. And so what happens basically is immigration sends a request to hold a person, and then the local jail, the local sheriff's office looks at the person and says, well, you don't have a record. I don't have a reason to hold you, and I'm not going to spend any more money to hold you unless they come and pick you up, and that's their interest, but not ours. So that's the federal level, and then state level. There are other little buzzes of immigration action being happening. The Supreme Court just passed just gave a decision yesterday, Monday, on something that's related to immigration, and that is when somebody submits their paperwork for residency and they qualify through the various means that there are to qualify, they are allowed to submit their paperwork for themselves and for their children, their minor children. What happens is that when somebody submits their paperwork and the children are still children under 21, that's fine. The paperwork goes through and they get a date that basically sets them in line. In some countries, for some countries, that residency line may be as short as 4 or 5 years. And for some countries, though, like the Philippines, it's I believe 11 years right now if a family submits their paperwork and is officially in line. That is, all their paperwork is approved, but there are no visas and they would come in. For Mexico, it's something like 19, 20 years, which means the baby must be less than 1 year old before, when their paperwork is submitted, because any older than that, by the time the paperwork comes back, what they called was aging out. So the cases that have come through the courts are pretty strong, and I mean the details very basic. We submitted our paperwork. The kid was 15. Now finally immigration gets to it 5 or 6 years later, and now the kid is 21. What they basically said, the Supreme Court yesterday said, was that that rule is good enough. That is, if somebody ages out because, doesn't matter how long immigration held the paperwork, it's okay, and that person is no longer, they're eligible if they're petitioned by somebody else. And usually if the parent was a resident, then the kid, now adult, over 21, could submit paperwork, but they have to get back in line and start over. So depending, in this case for children, you're going back to the line. If you waited 6 years and your weight was 11, you wait those 6 years, then you get notified that you've aged out, and now you go back to the end of the line. Now you got to wait 11 years. 11, 20, whatever the line may have at that time. From the administration level of immigration, it may make sense. But of course, from the family's perspective, from our perspective in the Immigration Forum, that just does not make sense. Somebody's waited in line. You hear the cries over and over, wait in line, do it legally. But a person doing that now has incremented, doubled their time at least, and that's okay. I mean, they would say, you're following the laws. Laws, when they don't make sense, need to be changed, and that's our position at Immigration Forum. The laws at this level, but also in the whole system of immigration, do not make sense. They need to be changed. Our congressmen just can't go home for holidays again and have, we've reached now the 2 million mark of deporting individuals. Deport who is a criminal. Deport those people that, do not qualify in any way. But when you have hardworking people following everything that they can and still be excluded, I'm sorry, it's un-American. These potential Americans are being rejected because they've come, they've done their work, they've done everything that they can, but there are sometimes that the law just is not only cumbersome, it is exclusionary. So my personal philosophy on this has been that until they make the laws easier or economical, because sometimes the fees are just out of this world, then people will take the next step forward. Immigration is a natural cycle, and so they'll immigrate anyway. And whether that's illegally or by paying off or whatever else, they'll risk it. As a parent coming from, here, it all just seems easy. But when it's a parent that knows that there's a future, or there's an opportunity, you take your children where the opportunities are, whether it's choosing school or in this case choosing cities or countries. So lastly, related to this, let me say the Immigration Forum this week and continually has been helping out the local youth and their parents with the paperwork for what we call DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. That is, those kids that were brought as youngsters and have lived here for a while, and they get to high school and they don't take driver's ed. Why? Because they couldn't get a driver's license because they didn't have any papers. The federal program has said they can enroll and make some progress if, on the legal side, they wouldn't be deported if they were continuing in school or had enrolled for college or finished their high school. Anyway, we call them the DACA kids. The paperwork is onerous. It costs $435, I believe, $465, I think, dollars for them to enroll. And however a kid gets this money, we help them fill out the paperwork, not as lawyers. We usually have a lawyer present so that the paperwork can be taken care of. The first round of DACA renewals, that is the year, is over for them, and this week we're helping them with their paperwork. Immigration Forum at the market or at the schools or wherever we are, we're just trying to help out people. We welcome volunteers. The first Tuesday of every month is a welcome time to come meet other people that are doing the same thing. Or if you go to our website, cuimmigrationforum.org, you'll find enough contact information. So I thank you once again for listening to this program. We mean to inform you. We mean to dialogue with you. So please come or send an email, and we'd be happy to continue this conversation. This is Ricardo Diaz at CU Immigration Forum TV saying until next time.